Imagine dedicating 40 years to one woman, only for her to smirk and say, "You're too old to satisfy me, so I've got younger lovers now." Walter had a heart attack that night. But what came after? Not despair. Plan. Because when you've got nothing left to lose, you're capable of anything. And Walter? He was just getting started. Walter Henderson wasn't a hero or a victim, just a man who had done everything right. At 66, he was retired from a successful engineering career, living in a peaceful lakeside home in upstate New York. Sundays were for gardening, movies, and long talks with his wife, Margaret. They'd built a life filled with habit and quiet affection. 2 kids. For decades. No scandal. No drama. So when she looked across the dinner table that night and said the words, it hit harder than any punch he could have imagined. "Walter, you're too old to satisfy my needs. I found someone else. Younger. Stronger. Better in bed." She said it with the same tone she might have used to ask for more wine. No hesitation. No guilt. Just blunt honesty wrapped in smug detachment. Walter blinked at her, unsure he heard correctly. "Come again?" he asked, his voice uneven. "I'm not going to pretend anymore. I've started seeing someone. Actually, more than one. And I don't plan on stopping. You're a good man, Walter. But you're not enough." She sipped her wine and smiled faintly. Walter's fork slipped from his hand. A slow, tightening pain crept across his chest. At first he thought it was panic. Then his vision blurred. The world spun. And then everything faded to black. The hospital room was sterile and quiet, interrupted only by the soft beep of a heart monitor. Walter woke to find wires connected to his chest and a nurse adjusting his fore. "You're lucky," she said gently. "A few more minutes, Anne." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Walter asked the only question that mattered. "Was my wife here?" The nurse hesitated, then offered a thin smile. "She came the night you were brought in. Stayed 10 minutes. Left with a younger man." That was it. 40 years reduced to 10 minutes and a shrug. The physical pain in his chest was nothing compared to what came next. The realization didn't bring tears, it brought clarity. Lying there, stitched together by machines, abandoned by the woman who once promised forever, Walter didn't cry. He calculated. If she thought he was weak, done. She had no idea what he was capable of. 3 days later, Walter was discharged. Not by Margaret, but by his daughter Emily, who'd flown in the moment she heard. Emily didn't ask questions, just drove him home in silence, watching him from the corner of her eye. The house was exactly as he left it, but everything felt different. Her car was gone. Her scent lingered. Her clothes, however, were nowhere to be found. On the dresser was a note. "Please don't make this dramatic. You're strong, you'll survive. I need passion and excitement. You can keep the house. I found someone who makes me feel alive." No apology. No guilt. Just a cold declaration of departure, as if leaving behind 40 years was as easy as switching lanes on a highway. That night, Walter didn't sit down and grieve. He pulled out the prenup she never bothered to read and called his lawyer. It turned out the house, bought before the marriage, was solely in his name. The investments, also his. The prenup included a moral clause, and by violating it, Margaret had forfeited everything. Her arrogance had blinded her. She thought walking away meant she'd walk free. Walter was just getting started. Margaret didn't come back. Not to apologize, not even to collect her belongings properly. She simply disappeared into her new life with Travis, a 29-year-old personal trainer who looked like a fitness ad and lived like a cautionary tale. Walter didn't waste time with confrontation. Emotion clouds judgment. He focused on facts. Step 1. Secure the battlefield. The locks were changed. The alarm code reset. Margaret would find out the hard way that this wasn't her home anymore. Step 2. Information. Walter hired a private investigator. The goal wasn't gossip, it was leverage. He wanted everything on Travis. Name, history, finances, weak points. What he got exceeded expectations. Travis Freeman. Divorced twice. Bankrupt. A criminal record. DUIs, unpaid debts, and a restraining order from an ex. no assets, no steady income, and currently living rent-free in a condo Margaret was footing the bill for. More importantly, the PI captured photos and audio of their behavior. Public displays of affection. Reckless spending. Travis using Margaret's credit card to buy a watch. Margaret laughing at how boring Walter had always been. A line from Travis stood out. "Once you get his pension or whatever, we're set." It was all the confirmation Walter needed. He didn't go public yet. First, he targeted Margaret's identity. The polished persona she wore like armor. Her curated social image. Her garden club friendships. Her place in the community as a loyal wife. Walter invited 3 of their oldest mutual friends over for tea. Just tea. No dramatics. He played one of the audio clips. Margaret's voice filled the room. Walter was just the safe option. He can't give me what Travis does. There was stunned silence. One woman, Barbara, covered her mouth. "She told us you were controlling. Cold." "She lied," Walter replied simply. Word spread fast. Margaret's narrative collapsed. Financially, the unraveling followed. Margaret had no access to joint accounts, they didn't exist. Walter had made sure of that years ago. The prenup gave her no legal footing. She didn't know it yet, so he waited. She found out when her card was declined at a salon. She called him, furious. "You shut down my account? I was humiliated." "You wanted independence," Walter said calmly. "This is what it looks like." Click. Then came Travis's downfall. Walter contacted Travis's last employer, a gym in Albany, posing as an investor. The gym manager didn't hold back. "He owes us rent for studio space." Took off with a pair of headphones. Tried using Margaret's name as a reference to get certified again. Perfect. Walter forwarded Travis's criminal record, Instagram screenshots, and audio clips to the certifying board. Travis's reapplication was denied within days. No license, no clients, no income. By the end of the month, Margaret was stuck paying rent for a 1-bedroom apartment while supporting a man who refused to get a job. Travis began disappearing during the day, claiming to job hunt. Margaret began pawning her jewelry online. That expensive necklace he bought her? Gone for $60. Walter didn't gloat. He didn't send messages or make threats. He waited, because the final blow needed perfect timing. The goal wasn't revenge through pain. It was truth through exposure. And when the timing was right, he'd deliver the last piece himself, personally. The manila envelope arrived on a Wednesday. Inside, the private investigator had compiled 3 weeks' worth of surveillance into a single, devastating collection. Photos, video, audio. Margaret and Travis stumbling out of a cheap motel. Margaret handing over her credit card as Travis picked out a necklace. Her wearing it days later in a photo captioned, "Finally treated like a queen." Then the audio recordings. Walter hit play on one. Margaret's voice, slightly slurred, laughing. Walter was just stable, safe, like a warm blanket. But Travis? He makes me feel alive. Travis responded, "Babe, once you get his pension or whatever, we'll be golden. You're doing great." It wasn't betrayal anymore. It was fraud with a romantic spin. And Walter knew exactly what to do. He started with her image. Margaret had spent decades cultivating a reputation. The elegant, kind wife. The woman who always sent handwritten thank you notes, who chaired community drives, who baked cookies for neighborhood events. Walter invited a few mutual acquaintances over. Casual. Tea. No drama. He said nothing until everyone was seated. Then he played the clip. No commentary, no context. Just her words. Just the truth. Gasped. Silence. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Barbara, her closest friend, set her cup down and said quietly, "She told us you were cold. Controlling. I can't believe this." "She lied to all of us," Walter said. "And now, I'm simply correcting the record." Next came her finances. Margaret still assumed she'd walk away with part of Walter's wealth. She hadn't realized the prenup was ironclad, and that she'd already forfeited her claims by violating its moral clause. Walter let her find out the hard way. The bank froze her cards. Her account flagged. Her balance showed 0. She called again. "Walter, my card got declined again. I was trying to buy groceries." He answered calmly, "You made your choices, Margaret. Now you get to live with them. You can't just cut me off." "I didn't. You did. When you left." Click. Then Travis. Walter had learned Travis was trying to rebuild his personal training career, using Margaret's name as a character reference. Walter forwarded everything to the licensing board. The criminal record, the audio, the screenshots of inappropriate messages sent to female clients. A week later, Travis's recertification was denied. Again, word spread through fitness forums. His name was blacklisted in gyms across 3 counties. Margaret had to cover rent, utilities, food, and now, an unemployed boyfriend whose only skill was posting gym selfies and asking for emotional support. Margaret tried to maintain appearances. She showed up at social events in oversized sunglasses. She avoided questions. Her circle shrank. Walter's circle, meanwhile, expanded. Friends checked in. Neighbors offered kind words. Even Emily, his daughter, saw the truth now. "She lied to all of us, Dad," she said. "And you've handled it with more grace than I ever could." Walter nodded. He wasn't doing this for revenge. Not anymore. This was justice. Quiet. Calculated. Deserved. And it still wasn't finished. One last act remained. Not out of cruelty, but for closure. A final confrontation on his terms. It was late Sunday afternoon when the knock came. Walter wasn't surprised. He had expected it for weeks. Timing was the only unknown. He opened the door to find Margaret standing there. She didn't look victorious. Not even defiant. She looked tired. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "Walter, please. I need to talk." He didn't invite her in. She stood there, uncertain. Then spoke again, quickly, as if she feared being cut off. "Travis is gone. He emptied the apartment, took my laptop, left a note that said I was too old, too boring. Just like I said you were." Walter didn't speak. Tears gathered in her eyes, but he wasn't moved by them. "Not anymore." "I was wrong," she said. "You were always there for me. You never failed me. I don't know what I was thinking. I let go of the best thing I ever had." She paused. "I want to come back. We can start over. Please, I'll fix it." Walter stared at her for a moment, then held up a finger. "Wait here." He walked inside. When he returned, he handed her a sealed envelope. Written on the front in clean print, "Margaret, closure." She frowned. "What is this?" "Read it when you get home. Not here." She hesitated, then nodded and turned to leave. Inside the envelope was a single letter. Short, direct. "Margaret, when you told me I was too old to satisfy you, while I was unconscious in a hospital bed, you didn't just end a marriage. You revealed the truth. You never loved me. You loved the life I built. The comfort, the routine, the protection. And when that no longer served you, you traded it in for chaos. You thought I'd crumble. You thought you were walking away with the upper hand. But you weren't. You walked away from your last lifeline. I don't hate you. I don't even pity you. But I won't let you rewrite history. I gave you everything. And when it mattered most, you gave me nothing. Now I give you this freedom. The kind you said you wanted. You're not my wife. You're not my problem. You're a lesson. And I've learned it. Walter." Walter didn't expect a reply. He didn't want one. A month later, a neighbor mentioned that Margaret had tried rejoining the local charity board. They had declined. Word of her affair, and the audio, had circulated among members. Her reputation had collapsed. Her network evaporated. Walter had no interest in Margaret's downfall for its own sake. But it did bring peace to know the truth had reached where it needed to go. As for Travis, he was last seen moving out of a temporary rental in another state. Jobless. Alone. And Walter? He started photography classes. He met someone. Kind. Grounded. No drama. They had coffee on the back patio one morning when his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Walter, I miss who we were. I miss who I was with you." He blocked the number without reading further. because he wasn't that man anymore. Margaret never replied to the letter directly. She didn't try to come back again. But her attempts to rebuild quietly made their way to Walter through others. She applied to volunteer positions, turned down. Tried to organize a charity brunch, ignored. The women she used to gossip with now avoided her. Not out of loyalty to Walter, but because she had embarrassed them too. She hadn't just betrayed her husband. She'd lied to everyone. What stung her more than the social rejection was what came after. Travis had burned every bridge, including hers. He vanished after draining what little money she had left. One of his exes messaged Margaret online. Just one line. "He does this to everyone. You were just next." Margaret sold her jewelry, moved to a cheaper apartment, and took a part-time receptionist job. It was the first time in decades she had worked. Bills piled up. She applied for credit lines, denied. Her name no longer opened doors. Closed them. Walter didn't gloat. He didn't follow her downfall. He didn't need to. That part was finished. His focus was elsewhere. Photography wasn't just a hobby, it became therapy. Every click of the shutter was another step away from who he used to be. He found joy in simplicity. Morning walks, community events, dinners with his daughter. Eventually, someone new entered his life. Her name was Claire. They met in class. She asked him once, casually, "What do you like taking pictures of most?" He answered, "Anything real." She smiled. That was enough. They never rushed into anything. Walter didn't need to fill a void. He had already healed. Claire wasn't his escape. She was a reward for surviving something ugly without becoming bitter. One afternoon, Walter received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. He recognized the handwriting immediately. Margaret. He opened it. No dramatic introduction. No please. Just this. "I ruined everything. Not just our marriage. Me. The version of myself I respected. It's gone. You were always good to me, and I threw you away. I know there's no going back. But I needed to say this. You didn't deserve what I did. I'm sorry. I see it now. I hope wherever you are, you're happy." Walter folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Not to save it. Just to file it away, like closing a file that no longer needed to stay open. He never responded. Months passed. Life moved forward. One morning, Walter stood on his porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. Claire came out, leaned beside him and said, "You look peaceful." "I am," he replied, and he meant it. Not because he had won. Not because she had lost, but because he had walked away without dragging the past behind him. That was the real revenge. Not humiliation. Not retaliation. Just clarity. Letting someone destroy themselves while you rebuild. Quietly, steadily, without ever raising your voice. Margaret had once said she wanted to feel alive. Walter finally did.